Perfect Stranglers contains graphic and explicit content suitable for mature listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
You're listening to Perfect Stranglers. This is Bree.
And I'm Kylie.
It's spooky season.
I am so amped that it's spooky season.
Yes.
Like, so normally I think of like what I'm going to do for Halloween like months in advance. Like, and when I say months, I mean like spring. Around April. And I've had one idea in my mind this entire time, and I like don't want to say it. But like I kind of want to say it, but I don't want to say it because it's really good. I don't know, I get really weird about it. Superstitious.
Okay.
Do you want to know what it is?
Yes. You have to say it now. You have to.
Okay. I want to be poison ivy.
Okay. That would be awesome.
Like full on, like I want to paint my body green. I want to have a long red wig. I've always been disgusting for Halloween. Blood, ripping faces off, like, you know, I want to be something not bloody. So possibly that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I used to live above a bar downtown. And,
which one?
Above Brothers.
Oh, you lived above Brothers?
Yeah, during hair school, I lived above Brothers
did?
for like 3 years.
Oh my God.
And
I'm
so,
sorry.
you know, I'd see all of the Halloween costumes and stuff. The weirdest one that I saw was sexy crayons. It was a group costume, and the girls were dressed as sexy crayons. So,
What color? Was there a red one?
I remember a green one, a blue one, and a pink one.
Oh, where was the sexy red one?
Right? I don't know.
I mean, definitely missed opportunity there. That is so weird. It is so bizarre.
It was weird. I saw some shit.
I couldn't.
Definitely. I saw a proposal on St. Patrick's Day, and the guy was kneeling down like next to a puddle of puke. It was really romantic.
Oh my God. Those of you who don't know, Brothers is in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and I know that there's a record for La Crosse having the most bars or whatever. So I Googled it, and La Crosse, at one time, La Crosse broke a Guinness Book World Record with the most bars or nightclubs located on one street, which is 3rd Street, downtown. And I don't know if that still stands today, but yeah. And it's also, yeah, just bad records being broken about alcohol there. But it's fun on Halloween. To a point.
It is. And La Crosse is breaking other records for COVID recently. So
Thanks, COVID. Thanks, 2020.
Right.
Thanks. I mean, what else are you going to do during 2020? Start a podcast about awful stuff.
Exactly.
So what kind of awful stuff are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about H.H. Holmes. Ever heard of him?
Yes. Okay. So here's my thing on H.H. Holmes. Chicago. It's in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I know, like, and I feel bad being, like, a true crime fan and not knowing the ins and outs of H.H. Holmes. I know it's gross. I know, like, the broad spectrum thing, but I don't know the details. So I'm excited to hear about the details of it.
Yeah. Well, he was actually America's first known serial killer.
Okay, that's, like, the one thing I do know. Because
Yeah.
it's in the 1800s?
Yes, the late 1800s.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyone else that would have killed prior to that was labeled as a serial killer after that, once they realized what
Well,
defines a
actually,
serial killer.
in the H.H. Holmes case, the newspapers, they referred to him as a multi-murderer because the term serial killer hadn't been invented yet.
And that's why we watch Mindhunter on Netflix. See? Okay, let's hear. Like, give it to me. Give it to me straight.
Let's jump right in. So H.H. Holmes, that's not his real name. he was actually from New Hampshire. He was born as Herman Webster Mudgett.
Oh, that's an
Yeah.
awful name.
Yep.
That's a bad
Yep.
name.
He was born in 1861. So this is kind of an old-timey kind of murder. So
Okay.
he was a very smart child, and his classmates were not very nice to him. He got bullied, and apparently they were kind of jealous because he was he was a smarty pants. So
I mean, have we heard his name? I mean,
right,
come on.
exactly. So these kids, they bully him, and one day they drug him to the doctor's office because they knew he was super scared of the skeleton that was in there, and they went in and they locked him in the doctor's office with this skeleton, and he was absolutely terrified.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, no shit.
So it actually backfired because it cured him of his fear, and he began to be like fascinated with bones and like your insides.
Oh my god, he had like exposure therapy and it cured him
Yes.
immediately. What the hell?
Yeah.
How creepy. That reminds me of like when you see TV shows of nerds getting locked in lockers, which one, they're tiny, how is anyone fitting in there? But two, like that would either trigger severe claustrophobia or cure it
Right.
from exposure
Exactly.
therapy.
And
Yeah.
I think when you said that, I thought of like Screech from Saved by the Bell. And like I'm pretty sure they actually like did that to him on set. They were like kind of treated him like the actual character. And I'm pretty sure Screech lives in Wisconsin now.
Yeah, and didn't he get arrested in Wisconsin?
He stabbed a guy in a bar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, were we in cosmetology school when that happened? I feel like we were.
I think so. And then he was trying to save his house cuz it was like going to be going into foreclosure, and he was selling t-shirts. Do you remember that? Yeah.
Yeah. God.
Dustin
Wow.
Diamond.
Yes, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So, well, anyways, back to H.H. Holmes.
Sorry, Screech.
All right, so he ended up getting really interested in chemistry and anatomy, and after he graduated from high school, he ended up studying chemistry and anatomy at the University of Michigan. He went there for med school after going to University of Vermont. This documentary that I watched about H.H. Holmes, there was this criminal profiler that works with the FBI. His name is Tom Cronin. He said that most serial killers actually don't finish college. They don't
really?
have they just kind of can't stick with it. Did Ted Bundy graduated from college, didn't he?
I think so, yeah.
Didn't he? I thought he had a law degree or something like that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think he did.
So he's probably one of the other few serial killers that actually
Did. That
stuck
kind of
to it.
surprises me because serial killers, I feel like I don't know, they're smart, aren't they? Most serial killers are smart, but if like they're a one-off killer, I feel like wouldn't be as smart because it's kind of like out of nowhere. Where a serial killer, they think it through.
So he had a psychology degree, actually. Okay, that makes sense for Ted Bundy, studying humans and human behavior.
Okay. Well, Nicole checked on it for us, and Ted Bundy had a psychology degree, but never passed law school, which makes total sense.
Right. Although he did represent himself like a lunatic.
And failed.
Right. So H.H. Holmes, he graduated from med school in 1884, and his first job after med school was actually a teacher. He actually did a lot of things. He was a doctor, a teacher, an asylum attendant, and he also worked at drugstores in several Midwestern states. He changed his identity a lot because he didn't want anybody to be able to accuse him of fraud or poisoning anybody who he went to med school with, because he was not on the up and up. He was kind of a scam artist, and he was just kind of I don't know, he just
Just like a slimy individual.
exactly like, you know,
Like you just wouldn't trust him.
yeah, you wouldn't want to trust him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he changed his name to Henry Howard Holmes. So that's where we get the H.H. Holmes. He moved
Okay.
to Chicago in 1886, and the Chicago fire was in 1871. So the city was being rebuilt, and it was kind of thriving, and businesses and residential areas were kind of taking over and flourishing again.
Okay.
And he settled in this busy suburb called Inglewood.
Okay.
There was a train station there, so lots of people came in and out, and so he had lots of people to scam.
I need to tell a train station story quick. Okay. So this has nothing to do with it, but I took my mom and my sister to go to see Celine Dion. Go see Celine Dion last December in Chicago, and they took the train from La Crosse to Chicago, and I drove from Michigan down to Chicago. And my mom and sister were wandering around the Chicago streets at night in the rain in December,
Oh my
trying to find
God.
me. I'm trying to find them. I'm getting so pissed off because I know where I'm going. Like, I can handle a GPS. My mom, not used to technology, like, doesn't really know how to do it. My sister's phone is a piece of shit, I think. She was having issues getting reception or whatever, and the battery was dying. Anyway, I walked around downtown Chicago by myself at night in the rain on a Saturday night, trying to find my sister and my mom.
That
from a
sounds
train
really
station.
scary.
Dude, I was so past scary and being pissed off because I was like, get your asses over here. Use your walking GPS. Figure it out. Find a landmark. You're in Chicago. You can't tell me there's not a single landmark around that you can tell me where you're at.
Right?
And Google the address of it.
Oh my gosh.
Like, come on. Yeah, I was so mad. But we ended up having a really good time. Celine Dion is like, besides Beyonce, like top 4 concerts because the first 3 are Beyonce. But
Nice.
anyway,
Yes.
Chicago train station.
Yeah, so there was lots of trains going in and out. He worked at this drugstore in Inglewood, and it was the E.S. Holton drugstore. And Everett Holton, the owner, died of supposed natural causes. Several months later, his wife disappeared after selling the store to H.H. Holmes. So,
Ooh.
yeah,
Well,
he,
sips wine.
right, exactly.
Got news for you.
He did this more than once, actually, with the whole drugstore thing. He also, he scammed creditors. He bought and sold businesses and properties under different aliases. And he also scammed his customers at the drugstore with what he called mineral elixir, which, do you know what this mineral elixir was? It was city water. Yeah.
I mean, isn't that what we do with bottled water nowadays? Right. I mean, come on. Yes. Yes.
So, in 1888, he purchased this building. It was a property across the street from the drugstore that he now owned at 63rd and Wallace is where this property was. That's where he built his murder castle. It wasn't obviously known as the murder castle yet, but he started construction on it, and the whole community was really impressed by this huge, beautiful building that he was building, and they actually nicknamed it the castle. So there was constant turnover for like the contractors and everyone that was building it, because he didn't want people to know what it looked like in there, and he didn't have any like architect. He was the architect basically, and so like he would scam the contractors too. Like he'd have them like
get the party started over here.
Cheers. He'd have the contractors build like half a staircase, and then he'd fire them. He'd have them like build a wall and then fire them. He would like pick fights with them just to be able to fire them and stuff like that, so that nobody
So that
would have
so they never got to see the end
No, they
result.
didn't.
So okay, because I was gonna ask, is this like the Winchester Mansion where there's a bunch of staircases leading to
Yes,
nothing?
exactly. So
Okay.
like he built rooms and like hallways that would go to nowhere to kind of like disorient people if they were trying to kind of make their way through. He didn't want anybody to have a clear idea of the floor plan. He bought a lot of stuff on credit and then he would just had no intention of paying them back. He bought a huge bank vault on credit and he had it put into the building as it was being built, and then he built the walls around this bank vault. And once he started not making the payments, the bank company said, we need to repossess this vault because you're not paying. And he said, fine. I mean, you can come and take it, but you better not damage my walls, otherwise I'm gonna sue you for all that you're worth. So they didn't take it.
I mean,
And also he would like he bought he bought lots of things, like he bought furniture on credit and stuff like that, and then he would hide it in one of like the trap doors or like secret rooms that he had built in,
okay, so am
just so they
I
couldn't repossess.
okay? This is a no. How would you buy on credit in the 1800s? They didn't have MasterCard.
No, but it was like I think it was kind of like put it on my tab, like
Okay.
like they
Yeah.
just kept a record, like a revolving account.
This seems like a horrible business plan for back in the day.
It seems really stressful
A
to
stressful,
like always have people on your back.
yeah, stressful. Were there phone books? I don't know. Like, how are we? So, obviously, like, you're gonna look up. Don't look at me like that. You're gonna look up an address in a phone book, right? So, I'm like, okay, thinking back to my 90s kid days. If I were H.H. Holmes buying maybe not buying a dresser in a store and I needed to find H.H. Holmes, wouldn't I look up? Did they have phones back then? Nicole, you better cut this out.
That's why I was looking like that. I was like, wait, when were phones invented?
Okay, maybe don't cut this out, Nicole. When were phones invented?
But I mean, even if phones were invented, it doesn't necessarily mean every home had one.
Right.
I don't know.
I don't understand. How would you find someone back? What are you gonna go on send the mob after them? What are you gonna do?
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay, first phone, 1876.
Right.
Oh, like when they have
Okay,
the woman
so-
doing the I always see in like movies where they have like the woman doing
Right, like the
you know-
marvelous Mrs. Maisel, but I think that was later.
Okay, I don't.
The switchboards. Right.
Yes, a switchboard. Man.
Yes.
I feel like I didn't graduate high school.
So
Might be a serial killer over here. I cry too much for that.
I think it's probably safe to assume that they didn't have phones. It probably wasn't common then.
Okay, so the mob was searching for everyone. Got it. Noted.
In this castle on 63rd and Wallace, the bottom floor, the street level, it had a jewelry store, a pharmacy, a barber shop, a restaurant, a blacksmith, and so it just kind of was your normal shops and stuff like that.
Okay.
And the third floor had rented rooms. They had legit offices, and Holmes's bedroom was up there as well.
Okay.
The second floor had 35 rooms that were specifically designed to torture and kill people. So this is like the creepy part of the house. He had false walls and dead ends, like we were saying before, kind of like the Winchester Mansion.
Yep.
Intended to disorient. There were staircases and doorways that led to nowhere. And there was also a greased chute
Ooh.
that dropped all the way down to the basement.
A greased chute?
Yeah. It was for
Ew.
easy disposal of bodies.
Oh my
As it
god, that is
turns out.
so gross. Okay, so side note on that, okay. My mom listens to this podcast. You know, pleasures in lacrosse.
Yes.
Okay, it's a porn store, guys. Okay, one time I was in there with some friends, and we were talking about like how weird the inside of the space was because it just doesn't fit like a normal store. You could tell it used to be something else basically going in it, and we found out that so lacrosse does like ghost tours or whatever. It used to be half of it was a morgue and half of it was a funeral home, and there's a body chute that is still like it's there that goes down into the basement.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
That's scary. I wonder if the people who work there know that.
I mean, back like this had to have been like I had to have been like 24, so 6 years ago when I heard this story. So if anyone still works there, that was there at that point, they know, and they would tell us that. Or so when I was in there and we were talking to the guy who was telling us about this, he was like, "Yeah, like weird stuff happens in here. Like it's legit haunted."
Oh my gosh. Hey, any employees of Pleasures in downtown La Crosse, email us,
And send
right?
us free samples.
Of like strawberry flavored lube or something. Edible panties. No,
Yes.
just kidding.
we're
Actually,
not.
email us. No, we're not. Email us your creepy stories. What
Yes.
happens in there? What creepy
Yes, I
stuff
do wanna
happens?
know. I want to know the good, bad, and the ugly of all the weird, creepy stuff that happens.
I mean, I'm sure you get a lot of, tweakers in there at odd hours.
I'm sure you do. I'm gonna cry. My mommy bladder's gonna lose it. Oh my god. Okay, anyway.
All right, so the basement in this supposed castle, right? It had vats of acid and pits of quicklime, and it had a crematorium. It was actually disguised as a glass bending oven,
Oh my god.
which
I mean, yeah.
apparently it was not actually the right size for that.
And no one just looked into it?
No, I guess not. It was the right size for burning bodies, but not the right size for bending glass, I guess.
Wow.
He also had what he called an elasticity determinator, which basically it was just a stretcher. He was trying to create a race of giants, as he put it.
Oh my god.
But he would like tie them up like their wrists and their ankles and just like
And just
stretch it like
them?
yeah, like some type of medieval like
Torture.
something that maybe the yes, exactly. Something maybe the Inquisition would use or something like that.
Oh my god.
And then he'd clean off the bones of his victims and he'd reassemble them and sell them to medical schools and universities because he had connections. I mean, he was a doctor.
Didn't they
So-
wonder where he's getting these bones from? Did no one question it?
I guess back in that day, and up till fairly recently, I think.
Yeah.
There hasn't been too big of regulations on that. I mean, people
That's
back in the
insane.
day, people used to like grave rob and stuff like that
Yeah.
to sell the skeletons to medical colleges and things like that.
That's unreal. And like
Yeah.
really that's really not that long ago.
No, it actually isn't.
No. Wow, that's insane.
Yeah. So he made a killing in Chicago. Pardon the pun.
Oh, that's good.
So there's this other guy, right, that lived in Chicago. His name was Benjamin Peitzel.
Okay.
And he met H.H. Holmes when his family moved to Chicago in 1889. They had been traveling around the Midwest doing odd jobs for the past 10 years, and they were kind of ready to put down roots. They had 5 kids, the Peitzels did. Their names were Desi, the oldest girl, Alice, Nellie, Howard, and the baby, his name was Wharton.
Oh, hope they didn't call him Wart. Could you imagine being the youngest kid and you're definitely going to be named Wart? No one is not calling you Wart.
No.
Hate
Poor
it.
little feller.
Poor guy.
Yeah.
Hope he was cute.
Well, he kind of was. I saw some pictures of the kids. Some of them look like drawn pictures.
Okay.
We should put the pictures of these kids on our like Instagram or something like that, because like they kind of look scary.
Okay.
Like the pictures of the daughters, they look drawn and they don't look happy.
I mean, who was happy back then? They had to stand around forever for a picture.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
No,
okay, so when we release
Yeah.
this episode, we'll put those pictures in the post when we release this.
Okay, perfect. So the husband, Benjamin Peitzel, he drank heavily. He was a hard worker, I guess, though. So he was looking for carpentry work in Chicago, and they became best buds, I guess. H.H. Holmes was kind of a smaller, more petite guy, and Ben Peitzel was like this big lumbering guy who could kind of do the heavy lifting.
Okay.
And they kind of became in cahoots, you could say. They started kind of scamming people together, and he helped them like around the castle with building things and repairs, maintenance, and stuff like that.
Okay.
So in 1893, Chicago had the World's Fair from May to October.
That's
it was
such a long time.
I know. I didn't look it up, but I was going to. Like, why don't they have the World's Fair anymore? It seems kind of awesome.
I haven't heard. Okay, so I remember in history class hearing about the World's Fair, but not like in modern history.
Right.
So was that the Chicago one would be the last one that I would have heard of?
Maybe. I don't know when the last World's Fair was.
I don't know.
It was called the Columbian Exhibition, and it looked pretty awesome. I think there's a few like remnants of it in Chicago right now, but it definitely doesn't look how it did back in 1893.
Okay.
So the castle, though, it was about 3 miles away from the fairgrounds, and over 20 million people visited the World's Fair during that time.
Wow.
And he used that to his advantage to collect victims.
I mean, yeah.
Yes, so he was an opportunist on that. He rented a bunch of rooms. He would take the Peitzel children to the World's Fair, and then he would find old ladies who looked rich and were kind of flaunting their money, and he would say, hey, like, I have this wonderful, boarding house or whatever that you could stay at, a warm bed to stay at. And, which is kind of manipulative to bring the kids, because I think it would kind of get their defenses down.
Yeah. That is super manipulative and very serial killery. So.
Oh, definitely. He just preyed on weak people. He turned away a lot of men, and so most of his guests were women. So he really just played on vulnerable people, single women who were staying in the city for the World's Fair.
Yep.
So how this kind of worked, like how we were saying before about the telephones and how there really wasn't telephones around. There was no Expedia.com. So it's not like you can go and book your hotel before you get to the World's Fair. So you kind of just fly by the seat of your pants, I guess, in 1893. So people were they were leaving their homes and, going to the World's Fair. So their families knew they were going to Chicago, but they just never came home. And, like, how do you begin to look for somebody?
Especially like back then, I have no idea.
Exactly. I mean, you'd have to like hire a detective and have a lot of money, probably.
So much money. And how would you know who to trust? You're not going to be able to
Exactly.
track them down. What are you going to hire another detective to track your detective?
Exactly. So he would invite these ladies back to his hotel to stay on the second floor. Some of them probably got in and out just fine, but others were not so lucky. He had them staying in rooms that were insulated with asbestos to soundproof it.
Oh my god.
He had some rooms that had like gas pipes going into the vents, and they were like airtight rooms where he would just like gas them while they were sleeping. He had peepholes too, so he could watch them suffering or watch them dying.
No.
Yeah.
So was there any proof of like sexual gratification off of any of this?
Nothing that I read.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know that criminology probably wasn't very developed at that point either.
Okay. Because it sounds like having a peephole sounds like sexual, like he's getting off on it basically, but
Right,
who knows?
kind of
But
voyeuristic.
yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So his office was the control room for all of it. He had that's where he had like the valves that he would turn the gas on and suffocate people and stuff like that. So he was actually kind of a ladies' man. So it was kind of easy for him to kind of snag these ladies and bring them back to the hotel. Because he was a charmer. Which, you know, he's a con man. He has to be a charmer.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter what he's looks like. It doesn't matter that he's a petite man. He could charm his way into the ladies' pants and then charm them into the hotel.
Right. Oh, plus he was a doctor. So
Yeah.
you know, he's
Money.
like, oh, yeah, exactly. I'm this distinguished doctor with this beautiful mansion castle thing. So he was a bigamist too. He was married to 3 women at the same time.
Man got
Yeah.
around.
Oh, he sure did.
Oh my god.
Back in 1890, he was married to this woman named Julia Connor, and she was actually an employee of his and a mistress of his, because at the time he was married to this woman named Clara, who he abandoned. And so,
What an awful human.
oh, he really was. He was
Yeah.
just a selfish jackass.
Yeah.
So she lived at the castle with H.H. Holmes, and she had a daughter named Pearl. And he let Pearl live there as well. And she became pregnant with H.H. Holmes's kid. And she demanded, I mean, that was kind of taboo in those
Yeah.
times. So
Yeah.
she demanded that he married her, and he agreed. He said yes, if she agrees to first let him give her an abortion, because he's a doctor, and he kind of charmed her, like, let's do this the right way, let's get married, and then let's have our own child or whatever. And she agreed. But she died or was murdered, and nobody ever heard from her again.
That
And
was a murder.
Oh, definitely.
That was a murder.
Definitely. But he definitely murdered her.
Yeah.
There's really no proof, but nobody ever heard of Julia or Pearl ever again. A week later, after nobody had heard of Julia or Pearl, a week later he sold a skeleton to Hahnemann Medical College for $200.
Oh my god. Okay, how much, I want to say how much guts, but that's like a bad pun, but it's not meant to be fun, but like how ballsy do you have to be selling skeletons of people who are missing? No doubt. You know what I mean? That was one of their skeletons.
Yeah, exactly. And for $200. Apparently that's all she was worth.
Oh my god, how much money was, I wonder how much money that was that back in the day. And like it's not like they could test the bones and see who it was. See if it
No.
was a female, you know, at
No.
least of her size and age. Wow.
Right. DNA
Wow.
hadn't been discovered yet.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, so then he had a lot of other mistresses too. 2 years later, there was a girl named Emmeline Segrand, and she was a secretary of his. She wasn't so lucky either. She didn't make it out of the castle either. He told her to go into the vault and grab some papers, and he sealed it up and locked it, and she suffocated in there.
If a man tells you to go into a vault, you don't go into a vault. If anyone tells you to go into a vault, you don't go in the vault.
Yeah.
Or you take that person with you
Oh, exactly.
and have a third party watch the door.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
He I guess killed a few people in that vault the same exact way, but he sold her skeleton too. He sold it to, or what it probably was her, because it was a couple of weeks later and it was a female skeleton. Sold it to University of Chicago Med School, and then in a year after that, he was at it again, charming the pants off of a girl named Minnie Williams. She was his new secretary, and she was the beneficiary of a property in Fort Worth, Texas area, and it was valued at over $40,000 at the time,
Okay.
which is probably a lot in today's money. I'm sure that
Yeah.
there's some type of calculator online for that.
Oh, I'm sure it is. We're just going to assume that it's a lot.
Oh yeah, it's a lot. So he murdered her too. Murdered Minnie and her younger sister Annie, after having Minnie sign over the property to him. So he's just kind of ruthless, just kind of disposing of people
Yeah. Uses
along
them
the
for what
way,
he
just
needs.
getting whatever he wants.
Yeah. A true con man.
Exactly. He had his third wife, get a load of this name. Her name was Georgiana Yoke.
Oh my god. Georgiana
Yeah.
Yolk.
Yep,
That's awful too. The names in this are just
Yeah.
gold.
I know. And he married her under the name Henry Mansfield Howard. So that's who she thought that he was.
Oh, so he,
And-
yeah, because he had a bunch of identities too.
Yes, he certainly did.
Man, I forgot about that.
Yeah, she lived out her entire life, so he never killed her.
Oh, I wonder why.
And I don't think she kind of was she was kind of estranged from him.
Okay.
So Benjamin Peitzel and his family were close, with H.H. Holmes, and they were always around the castle. Workers in the castle would hear them arguing. Ben Peitzel and Holmes, they'd be arguing over finances. Peitzel's drinking was progressing and getting a lot worse, and they were having problems with creditors and things like that. And Peitzel knew a lot about Holmes's shady dealings, so he was afraid that he would tell people while he was drunk. And he kind of had outlived his usefulness, I guess you could say, to Holmes. So he created a scam, Holmes did, that he got the Peitzel family involved in. It was a life insurance scam. So the plan was that Carrie Peitzel, Ben Peitzel's wife, would take out a large life insurance policy where she was going to be the beneficiary. And they were going to stage Ben Peitzel's death. They were going to fake it.
This is the part of the H.H. Holmes story that I have heard. Out of all
Okay.
of that stuff, this is the part that I have heard.
Yes. So, and he did this a couple of times too,
Okay.
from what I've heard. So he faked the death. The life insurance policy was through Philadelphia, is a Philadelphia company called Fidelity Mutual Life Insurance Company.
It still exists.
So they were going to actually fake his death in Philadelphia. I think maybe they thought it would be easier to collect if it was kind of a local
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So they traveled from Chicago to Philadelphia to try and kind of set this up.
Okay.
So what they were going to do is Holmes was going to substitute a cadaver, which he assured Peitzel he'd have no problem getting a hold of because he's a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ben Peitzel would go into hiding for a while they collected the insurance money and split it up. So they set out, Ben Peitzel and H.H. Holmes set out to, they kind of went across the country when they were kind of on their way to Philadelphia. They kind of zigzagged all over. And H.H. Holmes kind of had a different name for every city that he was in. He went by Harry Gordon, G. Howell, Alexander E. Cook, A.C. Hayes, Franklin Pratt, Herbert A. Henderson, which reminds me of Harry and the Hendersons,
Yes.
Edward Hatch, Melvin Hollis, and J.A. Judson, and just a whole bunch of names. He had never been caught before, but in July of 1894, he tried to do the old drugstore scam where he tries to kind of get control of the business and poison the owners.
Yeah.
He tried that in St. Louis, and he got locked up and put into the jail there,
Okay.
which is something he hadn't anticipated.
Yeah.
So he met this guy. There was this guy, his name was Marion Hedgepeth, and he was a notorious outlaw at the time. And so they were cellmates. And he got to talking, because he's got a big mouth, and revealed his life insurance scam to Hedgepeth. And Marion Hedgepeth gave him the name of a crooked attorney to help him collect the insurance scam money. The only catch was he had to promise to send Marion Hedgepeth $500 for like a finder's fee.
Oh my god, this guy.
Yeah, once they collected the insurance scam money.
Yeah.
So how he eventually got out of jail was he got in contact with his wife, Georgiana Yoke, and he lied to her about why he was in jail in St. Louis, and she bailed him out a couple weeks later, and after that he ended up in Philadelphia so that they could do their whole scam. So Carrie Peitzel, she tries a last minute effort, tries to convince them to not go through with it, but eventually she agrees
Okay.
to go along with it. H.H. Holmes, obviously that's an alias, but Ben Peitzel adopts an alias too, B.F. Perry, and he poses as a patent dealer in Philadelphia, and
Could
they
you
get this little
imagine
shop.
Being like the detective on this case, or whoever would be investigating this, trying to figure out who all of these names are, and finally realizing they're all like basically two people.
Right.
Like what a wild like cat and mouse chase that would have been, I feel like.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking when I was like writing all these different names.
How confusing for you.
Yeah, exactly. There's like all these different names, and they somehow knew that they were all tied to this H.H. Holmes guy.
Yeah.
So that had to be a lot of crazy detective work.
Yeah.
So he was a patent dealer, right? And so, which I'm not entirely sure, but it it sounds like inventors just go there and they patent their inventions. And I don't know, he must have some type of authority to do that. I don't know how that all worked back in the late 1800s.
I don't know.
But what happened when they tried to do their whole insurance scam was that instead of faking Benjamin Peitzel's death, H.H. Holmes just went on ahead and just killed the guy. Yeah.
I mean, once a killer, always a killer, right?
Yeah. So, plus he knew a lot of his secrets. So, the day that his body was found, an inventor came in and he didn't see anybody in the lower like office area, so he went upstairs and he found Benjamin Peitzel, who was under the name B.F. Perry. He found him laying on the floor upstairs, and his face was burnt and mutilated. Oh. And they actually he died from chloroform.
Okay. Okay, two things. Face stuff creeps me out. Like, ugh. Face stuff, burning, that whole thing creeps me out. Do they know if did he die first and then the mutilation happened? Do we know?
H.H. Holmes, when he confessed to it, he said that he tied his wrists and ankles up, and I think that he was drunk already because he was a pretty heavy drinker.
Okay.
And he burned the guy. I think that he kind of knocked him out and then burned him and made him drink the chloroform, because there was a whole bunch of like liquid chloroform in his stomach, and the only way that they could figure out that it was chloroform was because there was a large amount in his stomach.
Okay.
Because they could only go by the smell and the look of it, because they didn't have the kind of testing that it would take to figure out what type of a chemical compound it was.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So he kind of, with the whole face burning thing, what he was trying to do was fake like an explosion, like a chemical explosion or something like that. But forensics were very rudimentary at that point. Like you couldn't test blood or anything. You could, if you had a stain that you thought was blood, you could test just to confirm that it was blood.
Okay.
So it was pretty hard to I mean, I'm sure for any of his victims, just to find evidence.
Yeah.
So Ben Peitzel needed to be identified by a direct relative and by Holmes in order for them to get their payout. And so Carrie Peitzel at the time, she was back in Chicago. She and her 3 youngest kids were very sick. I'm sure it was like some type of influenza or something like that. And so she couldn't go to identify him, which she thought that everything was going to plan. She didn't think that he was dead. Okay. She thought they were still going with their whole scam.
Oh no.
Yeah. So she sent her second oldest daughter. She was 15 at the time.
Oh.
So she sent her across the country. The oldest daughter stayed with Carrie and the 3 younger kids to try and take care of them. Mm-hmm. So Alice had the awful task of traveling to Philadelphia to try and identify her father, and they were really hard up for money, so it was a hard choice, but she sent Alice, and they positively ID'd him, and the coroner actually ruled it an accidental death.
Did he like pay off the coroner?
Who knows? I mean, he definitely could have. He's quite the con man.
Right.
So Holmes put Alice up in this hotel in Indianapolis and kind of left her there.
Okay.
And then he returned back to Chicago to see Carrie Peitzel, and he was alone, not with Alice. And so she was kind of shocked. She's like, "Where's my kid that I sent out to you?" And he convinced her that she was with Benjamin. She was safe, just hiding out with her dad. He was trying to convince her that it was best for him to take Nellie, Howard, and possibly little baby Wharton.
Oh, little baby Wart.
Yeah, take him with, because if she was going to go across the country, then she would have an easier time and not be noticed as much if she didn't have so many kids in tow.
Okay.
So he was trying to kind of split them up further. And the insurance company ended up paying the money, paid it to Carrie since she was the beneficiary, but Holmes finagled most of it away from her.
Okay.
So the plan was that Carrie and the kids that she still had with her were going to meet up with H.H. Holmes, with the other kids, with Benjamin, who she still thought was alive. And so, serial killers obviously target vulnerable people, and she was definitely a vulnerable person at the time.
Yeah.
Because she was essentially a single mom at the time, because she, her husband was, halfway across the country, so she thought. He was actually dead. So he travels with the kids. He gets Alice. Alice starts writing letters to Carrie, but she's not getting them.
Okay.
He arranges for Carrie and her two kids to stay at different places. So he's kind of like putting him and the kids up in different hotels, putting Carrie and the other kids up in different hotels, and kind of just playing mind games. At one point, he had them staying like a couple blocks away from each other, and he just never thought about like it's a mother, she's probably missing her children.
No kidding.
And the kids are probably missing her too, but he just kind of kept shuffling them all around. So he's not known for keeping his word, as we know.
Yeah.
He doesn't like to pay people. So he made one pretty bad mistake. He didn't send his old cellmate Hedgepeth that $500 that he promised him. So that guy was kind of pissed about that, and he reported it to the warden. He was like, "Hey, so this guy that was cellmates with me, he told me his whole plan of this insurance thing, and I read about the death of the guy that the insurance claim was about. I read about that in the newspaper, and I think he's trying to do that scam." So
Yeah.
the warden and the state, they investigate him, and they use the Pinkerton Detective Agency.
Okay.
Which was really famous. They actually prevented an early assassination attempt on Lincoln, and they destroyed a Confederate spy ring. And they were actually the innovators of the mugshot.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's one of those things that you don't think about, like, being invented, but someone had to invent
Right.
it. A mugshot.
Right, exactly. So the Pinkertons kind of tracked him, and they ended up finding him and apprehending him in 1894 in Boston.
Okay.
And he was tried for fraud in Philadelphia over the insurance scam, because with all the information that the Pinkertons had collected and everything like that, they kind of reinvestigated that whole insurance claim.
Mm-hmm.
So he pled guilty to fraud, but he also claimed that it was suicide.
Oh.
That the guy, which
I
I don't know about that, because his face was burnt.
Right. Okay. All right.
And
H.
yeah, exactly. And also, there was way more chloroform than he probably could have consumed.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So nobody could find the three kids that he was kind of traveling around with. So this detective guy, his name was Frank Geyer. He took on the task of trying to find these 3 children who were missing, the Peitzel children, and he started his search in 1895, and he started by looking at the unsent letters that Alice had written. He ended up locating the children, but they were not alive. He located the charred remains of the little boy.
No.
And yes, and then he dug up
just
the
said
bodies.
I hate burning stuff.
Yeah, I know. And he dug up the bodies of the 2 little girls. He found them in Toronto. So he was all over the place. He was also in the papers. Like, this was during the Jack the Ripper times. And by the way, there's also a theory that they think that H.H. Holmes is Jack the Ripper.
Okay, yeah. Yep.
So that's a theory out there too. So Americans had seen all the headlines of Jack the Ripper and everything like that, and they just kind of thought that they were safe and nothing like that could probably happen until they saw all this stuff about H.H. Holmes. He was an instant villain. Like we said earlier, they called him a multi-murderer. And so the police, in July of 1895, they enter the castle, trying to make sense of everything. They find in the basement a dissection table caked in dried blood. No. They find women's undergarments with blood on them, human and animal bones. Most of them are charred. So how they would identify bones was more by how they looked, like the structure, like I took anthropology. I should know what they're called, but like the little ball things on the end of bones and stuff like that. Like
I know what you're talking about. The joints?
Well, I don't know.
I'm picturing a cartoon bone.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. The 2 ends on the cartoon bone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like that.
So most of them, they didn't have the luxury of, identifying like that because they were all just mushed up pieces. They found also in the vats of acid, they found like 9 ribs in there. And there was apparently a lot of missing people that were reported to the Chicago police during that kind of time period. And 50 of the missing persons cases were traced back to the castle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's, at least 50 people, if not more. The castle was set to be like a murder museum, which, Victorian people had this weird kind of obsession with death.
Oh, hold on. Nicole just chimed in about the bone thing, the 2 knobby things that we're thinking of.
Yeah.
She says, empiphysis. So is it called the empiphysis of a bone?
Okay.
Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
She says that maybe. I don't know. If we're wrong, someone tell us. Someone educate us, please, on bones. She's like, not a doctor here. Hi, neither. We spent $20,000 learning how to blow dry hair, okay?
Yeah, don't ask us.
Don't ask us. I can give you a hell of a blowout, though.
So somebody ended up trying to burn down the castle because, I don't know, they probably thought that it was, an abomination to kind of profit off of people's misfortune. So while Holmes was in prison for all of this, he was approached by William Randolph Hearst.
Okay.
To the media mogul to get his story. He kind of just embellished things, and he just confessed to basically everything. He wanted to kind of make himself look like the worst monster ever. Just kind of lean into it, I guess.
Yeah, at that point, you might as well, I guess.
Yeah, he was super narcissistic, and so he was probably enjoying a lot of that attention.
Yeah.
During his trial, he fired his legal counsel and he represented himself.
Never a good... We just talked about this with Ted Bundy. Never a good idea.
No.
Just don't do it.
Nope. So he kind of realized that he was failing miserably representing himself at a certain point, and he brought his legal counsel back in, which probably had something to do with the fact of him being a narcissist and probably just wanted somebody to blame, to be able to blame.
Yep.
So Carrie Peitzel, she testifies.
Okay.
And she actually testified for hours. She was on the stand for hours. She cried, and they were reading letters from Alice that were never sent, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house, except for H.H. Holmes, of course.
Yep.
So they also brought Georgiana Yoke up onto the stand to testify, and he cried when he saw her, but not for any, not because he felt bad or for any of his crimes.
Yeah.
He was sentenced to hanging, is actually what happened to him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was found guilty of first-degree murder, and he, before he was murdered, he had the interview and had a book put out.
Okay.
Like how we said, with William Randolph Hearst, getting that story. So the castle is no longer there. It didn't, when people burnt it didn't burn completely down. It was just damaged, and I believe that it actually was torn down in the early 40s. But now it's a post office. It's the Englewood, Illinois post office.
Oh my God. Is it haunted? The grounds have to be.
Well, most of the post office is not on the section of the block where the castle was.
Okay.
There's only a very small portion. There's like a wall that kind of would have been possibly part of where the basement area was, but there's kind of a grassy knoll, I guess you could say, behind the post office.
Okay.
And that's where the castle stood.
Okay.
But I mean, there have been ghost hunters who've had access to the kind of the bowels of the post office.
Oh my God, has the Ghost Adventures been there? Zach Baggins? I have this weird thing for Zach Baggins.
I'm not sure if he's been there, but there's a guy who does haunted tours in Chicago, and he has been there and has a few videos on YouTube about going there. It's kind of hard to get back there. You gotta kind of crawl through some like crawl spaces and crawl over some like pipes and stuff like that.
Oh, for sure Zach Baggins would do that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Him and his douchebag trip pants.
Oh, for real.
Back when Hot Topic was like good.
Right? Oh my God, they're not good anymore.
Man, don't even fucking get me started on Hot Topic, man.
I know, it's
my
sad.
emo heart breaks every time I think of it.
I know. Last time I was in one, it's mostly like anime stuff now.
Now listen. Okay, guys, look and listen. The main color in Hot Topic, the main colors should be black, white, and red. Maybe some lime green, maybe some royal purple. It should not be a colorful fucking store, okay? There are more colors in Hot Topic than there is in an Abercrombie & Fitch, if that store even exists anymore. It
does.
Okay, I don't know. Aeropostale, that's the one that's like no longer existing. Anyway, Hot Topic is supposed to be for the emo kids, the goth kids, the metalcore kids, screamo kids.
The rock kids.
Yes, it's not supposed to be for people who like Ariana Grande. Anyway.
Right? It's for people who like Invader Zim.
Right. Black Veiled Brides, Avenged Sevenfold,
Yeah.
Children of Bodom, Amaranth. Come on, guys. It makes me so mad. It makes me so mad. Anyway, back to H.H. Holmes.
Yeah, actually, that pretty much wraps it up for H.H. Holmes.
I had no idea he was such a con man.
Yeah, he's a real big con man.
Wow. Yeah, I had no idea that. One, I didn't know that he traveled all throughout, basically, and kind of left bodies a little bit. Had no idea he was such a con man either. I thought that he just had like this castle that he did torture in and murdered people, and people came to him is what I thought.
Yep.
But, wow.
I'm pretty sure he also probably got a lot of victims from doing botched abortions and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, which is so...
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so...
So he was a real piece of work.
Yeah, he sounds like a piece of work. Yeah, I can't believe I didn't... I feel bad being like a true crime murder fan and not knowing about H.H. Holmes, but now I know. So I feel a little better about being a fan and saying I'm a fan. Right. So are you ready to hear something scary?
Yes.
Okay.
Has anybody sent in their stories?
Yes, they have. Okay, so we've gotten a few really good ones. I know this person. It's a childhood friend of mine, of my family's. And so I'm not going to lie, I read halfway through this story and I was like, this is some good shit. I want to be surprised when I read it live.
Okay.
So here we fucking go. Here we go.
Yes, let's get spooky.
Okay. This is freaking nuts.
Okay.
So, yeah, like I said, I only read half of it. Wanted to wait because I know that the end of it's going to be good and I want a real reaction. So,
I'm ready.
Yes. I'm not sure if this person wants to remain anonymous. The names are in the story, so sorry you put the names in there. So, here we go. Okay. So, it says, the second night after my husband, Nathan, and I got married, we were coming back from the Wisconsin Dells through New Lisbon, Wisconsin, where the rest of my family had rented a cabin the weekend I got married. My parents offered we stay in this cabin on the way home as they had left one day early from Minnesota, where they lived. Nathan and I agreed it would be a good idea since we were tired and it would break up our trip from the Dells back to La Crosse apartment, which is like about an hour drive. The cabin is located in a relatively secluded area of pine trees. It had 2 levels, a main level, and a finished basement, about 6 bedrooms, and decor that looked like it had been frozen in time from the 1980s, which, like, so freaking cool. So besides a couple of crosses on the wall and a few stuffed animals and dolls, that was the only really, like, creepy vibes it gave off to me when I walked in. However, while Nathan was taking a nap in one of the bedrooms in the basement and I was in the shower, he had a quote-unquote dream. I would call it that for no other word that I could think of, although some have suggested it sounds more like an astral projection experience, which, I will add, is not something either of us believe in.
Weird.
In this dream, and this is where I kind of stopped reading. So, in this dream, he was outside the cabin walking through the wooded area around the fire pit, the same pine trees and fire pit we had seen earlier while exploring the area around the cabin. He said he had felt a terrible feeling, something, quote, something bad was coming towards the cabin to us. Kelly is the girl's name, her in particular, and he rushed quickly back to the cabin, down the stairs, and said he saw himself hovering over me, saw what I was doing as I walked from the bathroom into the room, and then felt like he, quote, went back inside his body.
Oh my god. I just got goosebumps.
Now,
that's freaking weird.
I know! Now, this is what she experienced. So she saw, he then bolted upright in the bed and looked me straight in the eye and said, quote, "They're here."
Oh my god, like Poltergeist.
Unquote. I just got fucking chills, man.
They're here.
Oh, they're here. Oh my god, I have head to toe chills. Okay, it says, and we both heard 3 distinct knocks upstairs.
Oh my god.
I was not. I know. Holy Trinity.
Yes.
I have such bad chills. It's insane right now. Okay, so we both heard 3 distinct knocks upstairs. I was not freaked out at all yet, which, girl, you fucking should have been. But I was not freaked out at all yet and ran upstairs thinking we had visitors from the wedding. It was dark and I could see flashes of heat lightning in the distance, which gave off an even creepier vibe. I yelled towards the wood, "Guys, come around the other side of the cabin. Guys, Ange?" And I'm assuming that's like a person that she was.
Oh my god, she was outside? She was
know,
outside in
girl,
the dark?
inside.
Oh my god, no. No.
I know. Oh, I know. And anyway, she says, and I went around back of the cabin and no one. Nathan had gone to the back door when he heard the knocking, but no one was there either. We would have also seen someone leaving down the driveway if there had been someone there. I began to call everyone we knew from the wedding and who would have known that we were staying there, thinking they could have stopped by, including my parents, my 2 sisters, and my maid of honor, Ange, but they were all far away. Only my family and Ange knew where we were staying there. Only my family and Ange knew we were staying there anyway. That's when Nathan began to tell me about the dream he had had, and I began to feel an uneasiness set in my stomach when I realized he had said the words, "They're here," before we had heard the knocks.
Oh my god, no!
I know. So then it goes on to say, I found a scrapbook/album about the history of the cabin upstairs, and we began to read it together in the silence of the cabin. But we never came across anything remotely creepy being mentioned in it. Finally, closing the scrapbook and putting it away, I said dismissively, "It must have been a tree scraping against the side of the cabin then," just to calm him down, and we went back and forth about this for some time. Finally, he looked at me and said, "You know that wasn't a tree branch, Kelly." And he was right. I finally gave in and admitted I, too, heard 3 loud knocks upstairs. But what was unsettling is that neither of us knew who or what had caused it. Finally, to take Nathan's mind off of things, I put in the DVD Your Highness, which is one of his favorite guilty pleasure movies. Halfway through, Nathan said the creepy feeling he had would not leave, so I asked if it were better if we just packed right up then and drove from New Lisbon to South La Crosse in a thunderstorm and slept in our own apartment. And he said yes.
I would.
And he said yes, so we left. We called Nathan's dad, who is a pastor, and on our way home and told him about the experience, but he didn't have too much input into what we had experienced, except he mentioned if you start having weird dreams and hearing knocking and you can't identify where it's coming from, it's probably time to leave, which you think, yes. To this day, none of our friends and family have come forward to say that they have been playing trickets on us that night, so we doubt they were. And knowing like their family, I doubt that anyone is playing tricks on them, because this is unreal. Like,
wow,
it's insane. Yeah. Since each of us had ran to separate doors after we heard knocks and we didn't see anyone down the driveway, and I even went so far as to walk around the cabin without seeing anyone, we have our doubts it could have been a living person. So she says, which I thought was, so that's like the end of the story. So fun facts about New Lisbon. The actor that played Red from that 70s show is from there. Her husband grew up not far away in Nisida, and he claims there have been several creepy stories about things that have happened in the New Lisbon area, including a friend of Nathan's who claimed he watched the snow fall on the ground around the cemetery, except for a spot where a shaman is buried. Also, I know, I want to hear more about that. Get your friend to please write in, Kelly, because I want to know. Also, there was a Catholic splinter group who formed a cult not far from there, which I think we also should look into.
Definitely.
Nathan said they kept the body of a deceased member with them for some time in an attempt to, quote, resurrect them.
Oh.
To this day, my husband will not stay in a cabin, and I have thought several times about contacting the owner of this cabin and telling them of our experience to see if anyone else has experienced anything strange like the knocking I have, but have not done so yet. So, maybe they can send them this podcast, which I say yes. Please send them this podcast, because a few things. I want to know the location. Is it on Airbnb? Can I stay there? Can I visit there?
Oh my gosh.
And I want to know if any, right?
Girls trip.
And I want and I want to know, Nicole just chimed in, she's like, fucking insane. Yeah, dude. That gave me, I'm so glad that I didn't finish that story reading it, and I got to witness it while reading it to you, because I started tearing up and had full body chills just out of pure emotion and being creeped out.
Yeah.
That is I know, that is fucking insane, dude. Kelly, thank you so much for listening, supporting us, writing that in. Tell your family I say hi. And yeah, this is going to be airing in October for one of our Halloween episodes during the month of October. So yeah, super cool. And that is the scary story for the week here. Pretty nuts.
That was a really good story.
That is what I am fucking that's what I want to hear. That is so good. Right?
We should rent that place and do a podcast from it.
Oh my god, I still have chills. This is insane. I just love that story so much. But yeah, if anyone else has anything crazy they want to tell us, it could be paranormal, it could be true crime, it could just be like a weird experience that you had, like Bree and her stuffed animal. My mom messaged me about it, and she said that she was walking alone and listened to it, and she was creeped out. So yeah, I know. Hi, Mom. Um, but yeah, if anyone has any stories they want to write in, perfectstranglerspodcast@gmail.com. You can also go to our website, perfectstranglers.com. Instagram is oh my god, I'm drunk, guys. Instagram, help me breathe. Perfect_stranglers. Twitter is perf stranglers.
Please share with your friends and family and talk to them about, ask them their creepy
Please.
stories and have them send them in. You can also message us find us on Facebook, find us on Instagram, find us on Twitter. You can message us from all those, as well as our email and our website. Please like, rate, and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts because it helps us to get seen.
Yes, please do that. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, like, rate, and subscribe. Yeah, until next time, stay spooky and get ready for the Halloween episode.
Thanks for listening, everyone.